You're listening to Beyond the List, the podcast dedicated to high school coaches who work their tails off every day. This episode is proudly sponsored by Online Donations, a trusted brand for 12 years as an online fundraising platform for teams across the country. And yes, it's me, Billy Dooley. My real job is a fundraising rep for Online Donations, and I would love for you to send me an email and give me a chance to learn about your program and try and see if we can come up with a plan to reach your fundraising goals. My goal is to help coaches spend as little time as possible and make as much money as possible. No coach starts the season by saying, "Man, I can't wait to start fundraising." So let us help out. Whether you're raising money for a new locker room, uniforms, or a team trip, we can come up with a plan to get your program all in and raise the funds you need. So please reach out today for more information. My email is at the bottom of the screen. Now, stay tuned in for this week's episode of Beyond the List.
All right. Welcome back. This is Billy with Coach Dooley's List, and today we're in Columbus, Georgia with Jonathan Karastury, the FCA director here. And Jonathan, we appreciate you taking the time with us.
Honored to be here. It's good seeing you.
Yeah, listen, I would start by asking if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe on the YouTube page and follow us on all the social media platforms you can. I know you won't be following along because I know you have kind of taken it out of your life, which I totally understand as well. But listen, just to start, just kind of tell us, how you ended up being the FCA director down here and what led you to that.
Yeah, so in order to really get into that, some of my story, of course, is going to be involved with that. But I was a kid, grew up, started playing sports late, actually, towards the age of 8 years old. And what I found, even from an early age, is that the sports, they can bring community, it can bring popularity, it can bring all of these things. And growing up, before I started playing sports, not really being included in a ton of groups, not just trying to find my way and feeling like I didn't have that community, didn't have that connection. And it really, towards the end of middle school, going into high school, especially in high school, I was a baseball, football guy. I played all sports in middle school, but ended up specializing in football, was a quarterback actually at Northside High School. And what I found was that the devil used lie, steal, kill, destroy, right? And the deceiver that he is told me essentially that the way that I felt growing up without this community, without a ton of friends or all this, like, yes, you play sports now. Yes, you have a little popularity. I was a quarterback here, and go out there, throw a couple interceptions. Baseball season, go out there, strike out a couple times, do whatever, see how much these people care about you then. And I believed that. And I put so much pressure on myself because I didn't want to feel like the kid that I felt at times growing up, that this anxiety, this identity crisis really took control of my life to the point of signing to play college football at Faulkner University. At the time, they were the number 2 offense in all of college football that year. I think that was RG3's year at Baylor, and they were 3rd. I can't remember who was number 1, but in NCAA, NAIA, all of that, number 2, right, in offensive production.
Air raid.
Yep, air raid, and that's what I wanted. But I signed to go there, and never showed up. And what I realized was I wasn't doing it for all the right reasons. I wanted to sign and say that I was a college athlete so I could be worthy, right, of this misconception of my identity that I had. And really what it boiled down to is this God-sized void that we all have, no matter if you believe in the Lord or not, prayerfully you do, but we all feel this void. And I call it, the bullet hole that we can put Band-Aids over. Obviously that's not going to be super effective. My whole life I was putting that Band-Aid of sports over it, and they couldn't do it for me. So I ripped it off. And then instead of filling it with the only thing that can fill, right, that void, a relationship with the Lord, I went off to the University of West Georgia, got involved in a super toxic lifestyle, excessive drinking, drugs, just a bad lifestyle to the point to where I almost got myself and 3 people killed in a car accident, driving 60 miles per hour, falling asleep at the wheel, going through a telephone pole and waking up about 50 yards in a ditch. And all of that led to me essentially getting kicked out of the University of West Georgia 2 months in, and just that reality of how did I get here? And that's the thing. The devil doesn't provide us a chain and a ball and say, here you go. No one would take that. But just one chain link, we'll take that because we can handle that. And before you know it, how did I get here? And it all really stemmed from, it was at that moment I gave my life to Christ. And what I realized was surrender. I believed in God my entire life, but I didn't have a relationship with him. And there's a difference, right? And just a belief, right? Yep. I believe in Michael Jordan because I know of Michael Jordan, but I don't know Michael Jordan. There's that relationship, that surrender, that wasn't there. But it took me that moment coming back home and, really thinking about, there's so many people that deal with the same things that I dealt with. Coaches too, by the way, just people in general, this identity crisis and trying to be enough and everything. And what could I do to utilize what I know now, right? And take that to them. And sports, that was my avenue. And so I got my CSCS, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist, was in the private sector for several years, but utilized that to do ministry. And then eventually it came time, Mr. Lamar Weaver, who I know you know, phenomenal human being, who is the director of our 10-county area, asked to meet up with me. We had a conversation about what the future might look like, and I jumped on in. This is exactly what God has me on this earth for, and I absolutely love it.
Well, you make a lot of good points, and me and you, getting to know each other, I did not know all those things. And so I appreciate you sharing those. And you talk about that hole.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you can do in your life that is going to fill that hole except for God. Yep. Sports are going to end. Relationships are going to end. Jobs are going to change. The only thing that is constant is God. And I love that you say that, and love the shout out for Lamar Weaver. He's a wonderful human being, and I'm gonna have to get in touch with him at some point in time too.
Absolutely.
So with FCA, everybody's heard of FCA. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more involvement in some schools than other. I will say my first school, there wasn't a lot. There was a lot of Young Life that went on, which is also a great program, but there was not any FCA that I knew of in our school. And when I went to North Oconee, I really got involved with it, and got to do a marriage retreat, and got to do we got to stay at Coach Rick's house up on Lake Hartwell, and and then we started going to camp. Yep. Not everybody realizes everything that goes on with FCA. So when somebody thinks about FCA, what is everything that teams or coaches or players could get involved with?
Yeah.
To meet them where they're at.
Yep. So I would say that, our vision for FCA, to see the world transformed by Jesus Christ to the influence of coaches and athletes, right? And it's the world. So we want the world to be transformed, but transformed by what? The influence that sports has. So FCA targets, with a straight shot, sports, right? And the influence that they have. Because they do have influence. You look at a homecoming game, what is it surrounded around? A football game. The atmosphere of a school can be changed literally by sports. What I'll tell you about FCA is that, I just shared our vision, but our mission is to lead every coach and athlete into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ and his church. And we're really big on, especially in what we call this era of every, that every means every. So not just in the campuses, right? Obviously, strategically, that is a target that we're going to hit because you've got a lot of the athletes that are in the campuses. But not every coach and athlete are involved in campus sports, right? And so what I'll tell you is that I'll speak for the state of Georgia. All of the state, like Alabama, Florida, all the surrounding areas are great, but the state of Georgia is staffed very well and has a tremendous volunteer base. We are not, our desire is not to be staff-led ministry, because with a mission statement of every, you're never going to be able to staff every. So we are a volunteer-intensive ministry, whether it's pastors in the community or a business leader or just anybody who shares that same desire of utilizing the vehicle of sports for the Great Commission. There's opportunities there. You can go, if someone was interested in getting involved in FCA, you can search your area, type in, so like if someone were to type in, we're in Columbus, Muskogee County FCA or Columbus FCA, our page would pop up and they would be willing to contact, the person in charge there and the staff of people there to get involved. But especially in the state of Georgia, there's opportunities everywhere. and not only existing opportunities, but opportunities for people who have that passion, have that desire, who want to get involved, Because honestly, that's what we depend on as staff, is that volunteer base. And we provide training and resources so they feel equipped and empowered to go out and do what God is calling them to do. And then I'll say, if you're just a coach who is really looking for somebody to get engaged with your teams, right? We call them character coaches. Some people call them team chaplains, but we call them character coaches. Coaching is so important because you're teaching these athletes, right, something, hopefully more than the X's and O's, but the X's and O's too. Well, who's coaching the coaches?
Right.
And so that's who FCA wants to be. We want to walk alongside coaches. You might have a coach who says, yeah, I hear all this, but I just don't know if I'm ready for all that yet. Well, we want to walk alongside you and help you in that. For any coach who has a desire to have a character coach or to speak life into them or their team, their families, whatever, FCA is the place to go.
I love that. FCA played such a huge role in me being saved. When we got to North Oconee and Stuart McLean, if you know FCA, you know Stuart. Stuart, if you watch this, I tell everybody, you get a shout out. And if you call me or text me, I will take you lunch one day. Hadn't seen you in a while. But, it played such a huge role, just the coaches' huddles in the morning. And then getting to go to those retreats where you're just being coached, like you said, making me better so I can hopefully pass some of those things on to my athletes. Now, in your years in doing this could go back to when you got involved. It could be from being a director. What's one of your favorite FCA stories? Could be from camp, could be from anything.
Yeah. So I've got several, right?
Tell as many as you want.
Favorite FCA stories. But really what it boils down to is when you see somebody who, because it all summarizes to this. And so I can get into specific stories, but the root, if you peel the onion back of every story, this is what it boils down to, is when people understand that they have a story, right? And once they begin that relationship with Jesus, is I was once dead in my sin and I'm alive again. They found that freedom. And when they feel empowered, right, to declare that to the world. One of the hardest things, honestly, just being vulnerable about my testimony, it was so dramatic, so drastic, almost getting myself and 3 people killed in a car accident, having to go through all these tribunals, the worst, season of my life, getting kicked out of college, all this, it's crazy. Wow. Oh, I must have to go that low in order to get to where, you finally realized it. And I'm like, please don't. Please don't, because I shouldn't be alive today, honestly. And there's so many other people that have went through something similar and that aren't here, But we still all fill that void, right? Even Tom Brady says, why did I have all these Super Bowl rings? Why do I have more money than I've ever had in my entire life? The number one at the time supermodel wife in the world, and I still feel like something's missing. And those are all things that we're chasing, right? And it's just not going to fulfill you. And so we're all, no matter if we're on the highs or in the lows, without that relationship with the Lord, we still fill that void. And it's when people understand that their story, no matter what they've been through, no matter whatever, boils down to, I was once dead in my sin and alive in Christ. And through, their church, let me say this too. We love FCA. We love the platform about FCA. It's not about FCA. It's about the Great Commission. Now, love the organization, but we truly believe in, that's why we're a volunteer intensive ministry, giving the ministry away, highlighting others, and just being there as we can. So whether, of course, it's the church, FCA is not the church, just anybody, a young life, wherever, it doesn't matter, allowing them to get involved, get plugged in, and share their stories. That's the best thing about an FCA staff person, is when you can sit back and see, wow, look how far they've come. But a couple particular FCA team softball camp.
Amazing, by the way. If you haven't taken your team, get on the waiting list, because there is one.
So Marion County, John Dimitri, who I think you're actually seeing later today. He had a player on his team, J.K. Shivers, phenomenal.
She was our group leader.
Oh, really?
Last year coaching. Okay. Yes.
So J.K.
Your twin.
That's right. The real J.K. is as we say. But seeing J.K. So going to softball camp, her being involved there, Coach Dimitri's obedience in taking his team right there to begin with Well, then JK goes off, plays at, I think, Georgia Southwestern for a year or two, and just she has this burning desire. I want more. I want that. Raised by great parents, but she wants to be able to utilize the platform of sport. So she comes as a huddle leader, right, and then was with your team. Well, then she still, I want more. I want more. Well, then so she comes on staff with us part time, right, as an ambassador over the Marion County and does some stuff in the Sly County area. And, this past year hosts the first Fields of Faith ever at Marion County. They've got 500 people in attendance, 20 or so make decisions for Jesus. And you engineer everything back to a girl on the softball team through the obedience of a coach, was engaged with the gospel, not just at FCA. She was already a Christian to begin with, but was engaged with the gospel, engaged with the opportunity, said, hey, I want more of this. I want to be equipped. So then she goes on and she's equipped. She serves as a huddle leader, volunteer. Hey, I want more of this, and ultimately is empowered to that one girl on the softball team, creating an event and providing an opportunity for 500 people in her county of Marion County to hear the gospel from students and coaches in the area that are boldly willing to say, hey, this is my story, and invite them, right, to have that relationship with the Lord, and 20 or so making a decision for Jesus. Stories like that. And I can go on and on and on, but that's just one that initially comes up because that's what it's about, right? It's about empowering that one to put them in a position to accomplish things through the Lord's power that God has called them to do.
Well, look, Fields of Faith is no joke. And I mean, in any way, I mean, just the sheer number of people, and JK's probably 23, 24. So taking that on, I've been in, they're always on a football field typically. Yep. Unless it rains, you got to find a way inside. That's a lot to take on. And it makes me also think too, I tell my kids this, what I'm doing this, you try to find a job that you love, you never have to work a day in your life. Yeah. So if you love the Lord and you want to be able to, show that to other people, jump right in, which actually leads into my next question. Everybody comes from somewhere. If somebody did come to you and said, JK, I want to do what you do. I want to take on my own FCA. I want to do what you're doing and lead. What advice would you give to that person if they wanted to do that?
I would say to, if it's a volunteer area, to connect. It's all going to boil down to connecting with the person that's over the area, right? Some people might want to come on staff, which would be phenomenal. Some people, might just want to say, hey, I'm, whether it's a youth pastor, like I said, or somebody saying, I just want to get involved. I want to be I want to be where sports are and have an impact. It's really getting connected with the person over that area, and telling. And this is another thing that FCA does well, especially with volunteers. It's not, hey, it's not that we're telling the volunteers where to do ministry. It's like, hey, what are you passionate about? And then we'll find a spot for you there, because there's opportunities everywhere. That mission statement of every coach and athlete, there's opportunities everywhere. And then if it's a staff thing, there's several staff openings all across, and I'll just speak for the state of Georgia because that's my region, but everywhere, everywhere in the world. And a lot of people, they don't realize FCA is a global ministry. Right. So it's not just in your county. We're in over 115, 120 countries all across the world. If someone's passionate about international ministry, I mean, there's opportunities everywhere, but it's just gaining that information of what it looks like, whether you want to be a volunteer, whether you want to come on staff, and then having that conversation with whoever is over your area. And, you're not just going to get thrown to the wolves. We're going to walk alongside you just like we would walk along coaches. When we talk about our team of staff, we're not just talking about people on staff. We're talking about our mobilized volunteers who really, really make the difference, right, in the ministry occurring. So it really just boils down to finding out who's over your area. And you can look that up, connect with them, and I promise it would be the joy of their life to have that conversation with you.
Bo Fowler. That's who I was thinking about. I was talking to you yesterday, talking about being global. Bo was over Morgan County, and I remember we were actually sitting down talking, and he was like, I'm moving to Texas. I was like, why? I mean, he played football at Georgia. He's at Morgan County. I mean, right there. And he goes, God sending me to Texas. And so he went there, and I know he's still doing great. So, no, that's awesome. And like you said, you will not be disappointed, okay? by getting involved with FCA. If you're not sure, ask your athletic director. Coaches, some way get involved. If they're not in your school, find out who the local one is and say, hey, we'd love to have a huddle rep and come in, and just, you got to start somewhere. So that's great. Right. So, well, listen, the last thing I always asked everybody that I interview, you know, the big thing behind Coach Dooley's list is trying to connect coaches with typically vendors, or even FCA in this case, but trying to do things to help make their lives easier. So I always say, hey, is there somebody or something that you've worked with that has kind of made your life easier that you would refer to others?
Yeah, I think there's several things, of course, but speaking from a director, so coming on as a rep and then being a director, and I know there's several coaches, my wife being one of them, the head coach at Northside, and taking over for Brandon when he went to Harris County. You're drinking water through a fire hose. You know, as a head coach, it's just like, okay, where do I even begin? Because it's not just the X's and O's. There's so much that goes into that.
Assistant coach is the best job ever.
There's no doubt.
Then you realize when you go, I want to be a head coach.
Yeah, yeah. All the parents love you too. Yeah, yeah. Assistant coaches are great. But FCA is sort of similar. Like when you're the director, you're over an entire nonprofit ministry versus when you're a rep. You know, I am 90% working on the ministry and only 10% in the ministry. It used to be flip-flop, right? So I'm on the ministry. DropBox has been one of the biggest things for me because Mr. Lamar Weaver, who was the director for 10, 11, 12 years, did such a great job in putting any information that I would need to know into DropBox, organizing it by, you know, camps, donor things, you know, staff documents. I mean, everything to where I can always go back in and look and see, okay, this is how they did that. You know, for a coach, I think it would be great to start, you know, get on Dropbox, see what that looks like, put some files into there, organize it to where, you know, God might call you, right, somewhere else, or you might be getting ready to retire or whatever. And it's like, well, how do I start mentoring the next person, no matter what that looks like? Putting those information into there. How do you schedule games? How do you do umpires? What do these documents look like from each year? Because someone like me, whether it's camps or whatever it is, every single year I'll go back and say, especially in the very beginning, well, how did Lamar do this? You know, who do I need to contact for this? Or, you know, life is just wild. Now that I've been the director for 3 years, like we just got done with FCA team softball camp, FCA Larry Mize co-ed golf camp, like so many camps.
Summer's busy.
Well, within a year, I'm going back and saying, what did I do last year? You know, because there's so many things. There's so many things to forget. But Dropbox has been such a blessing for me because it's a resource that I can go back on, and it's organized to where I can look at all the little details of how to make another event successful, how to make another whatever successful. For coaches, you know, how can I make this season successful? And it's not just the X's and O's, especially when you're a head coach.
So 29 teams getting in hotels and floating down the river and playing 2 games a day is not just, it doesn't just happen?
No, it doesn't just happen. But I will tell you, we've got such a good system and such great coaches to where it's super easy. You know, we do the FCA Larry Mize golf camp I talked about. We'll have 24 to 30 golfers, co-ed, ages 12 to 18. And then we'll have softball camp like this year. We had about 700 people there, 650 to 700 people, 97 decisions for Jesus. It was incredible. People will look at it and be like, man, I bet you wish you were doing that golf camp. I'm like, golf camp's way harder. They're like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, I got 29 head coaches that I'm dealing with that's in charge of their teams, right? I don't have to really focus on
just the individuals.
It's just individuals, 12 to 18, co-ed, right? To where, you know,
middle schooler off on their own for the first time.
That's right, yeah. And so those are way more stressful than having 700 people and coordinating hotels and this and that.
Yeah, if you lose Johnny at 13, some radars go up.
That's right. That's right. If I lose a softball player, it's not on me. It's on you, Coach.
That's true. Yes.
But yeah.
Well, listen, man, I could sit and talk to you all day, and I do appreciate you taking the time. And if I can ever help you out, but thank you so much.
Yep.
Man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. It's good seeing you. Yep. Yes, sir.